Welcome everyone to the Midwest annual meeting. Great to see so many familiar names and faces, and then special welcome to several new members who've recently joined the Midwest chapter. Um, for the purpose of time, I think you can tell we're taking roll call behind the scenes. Chris is helping with that. We ended up with 31 registrations for the chapter annual meeting, so excited for that. But again, just to make our time a little bit more effective, we're skipping intros and bios. We do that all the time. Plus, we'll have some time on the back end today as we open up discussions with our guest speaker. So with that, we have a pretty packed agenda for our annual meeting today. First, we're going to spend some time talking about the ACT International Conference. We were lucky enough to have several on the call today, plus a good representation from the Midwest crew at the ACT International Conference. So we'll chat about that. I'm going to have Kelly run through a quick year in review as well as where we stand currently with the budget. And then Chris is going to step in and chat a little bit about the 2021 work plan, where we are to date, as well as opportunities as we close out the year and start to make plans for the upcoming year. Noah's going to step in and chat with you all about upcoming leadership opportunities. This is our continued push and plug at getting more of you involved, and we've been seeing quite a bit more momentum the last couple of months. So thank you in advance now for stepping up and working with us. And then finally, the second half of the meeting today, very excited for this topic. We have a guest speaker from ACT's new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Lisa Kay will come on and first really explain to us the establishment of this committee, its mission, and then more importantly, the tail end of it, open up discussion with you all on how we can incorporate DEI, not just into our everyday work within the TDM space, but how do we incorporate that into all aspects of our chapter, the Midwest. So with that, let's jump on in with the ACT International Conference. I'll kick this off. We're going to divvy up the speaking a little bit here. I have to admit that I'm extremely biased because I did help co-chair this year's conference, so I thought it went phenomenal. But taking out the biased perspective, I have to say, team, it was definitely one of the best conferences that I've attended, albeit the attendance was a little bit smaller than normal. And I think, going into it, we knew this year was just going to be a bit of a challenge just planning it, but even more so a challenge for folks to attend, given what's going on right now. All in all, it was a fantastic conference. And when I think about it during the conference, leaving the conference, trying to summarize, the best word that I can describe is collaboration. And as you hear some updates from Chris, as well as some of our other team members who attended the conference, there was a ton of collaboration going on. So in total, about 260 total attendees at this year's conference. Just to give you some perspective, in 2019 in New York, there was over 700, right? And so as we look ahead, and we'll chat more about Chicago, we're going to get that attendance back for sure. But of the 260, we had 13 here from the Midwest. In a way, I describe it as a small and mighty crew from the Midwest. And in a way, even though we wanted more people to attend, having a small group actually was an advantage for us. It allowed us to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more nimble. For example, when we're coordinating with one another for events, when we're coordinating to have our chapter meeting, as well as the final day when we did the 2022 announcement, just much easier because we had a small, intimate group. And I think the better byproduct of it is just our conversations were nice. They're extremely intimate. We're able to sit down, chat with past or peers in the TDM space, but also meet with a ton of new TDM participants and really get to know them and what they do. So all in all, fantastic conference and a ton of experience on my end as we look ahead to next year. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, because as you can see on this PowerPoint slide, we were handed a pretty big check there at the conference, and for a very good reason. Chris?
Thanks, Kevin. And just a quick acknowledgement that Kevin, as the co-chair of the 2021 conference committee, the whole thing was fantastic for me, second time conference attendee, and obviously Elizabeth and the rest of the ACT staff, just through everything that they had to deal with, planned a very great and pulled off a very great conference. So I was glad to be there. And we knew behind the scenes that we were in the running for the Act for Good prize, which was a membership campaign that was coordinated in the months of what, June and July, Elizabeth, or did it go back to May?
May, June, and July.
May, June, and July.
Yep.
So really the target of bringing on new member organizations into the ACT membership. And we were kind of neck and neck with the Cascades chapter during the final month. And that's really how it finished. We shared the prize with the Cascades chapter. So we have now $625 to decide as a chapter how to allocate to a nonprofit organization that's working to advance transportation equity. So this was an exciting coup for the Midwest chapter. It was my first chance to go on stage at the conference and grab this large check. And it's something that I think as a group, we would like to open up a nominations process this fall to see from you, our membership, what organizations you work with or that you know of out there in the arena that you think are deserving of, it's a modest award, but it's going to be something unexpected. I don't think anybody is expecting a $625 check coming their way from the ACT Midwest chapter. So that's a fun part of it. We get to come up with the ideas as a group, and then I think we'll put it to a vote later this fall as a member, as the chapter membership, and decide what nonprofit organization will get this award from ACT Midwest. I think we're going to roll right. Any questions on that before we keep moving? I wanted to just highlight too. There were 4 new member organizations that were brought in during this period. And I just wanted to acknowledge that Zia Bukaya was one of the recruiters that brought in Wisconsin DOT. So good job, Zia. We also brought in Darrow, the Bulletin.io, and Commute. And then we've also had 2 new organizations join up since the award was made. So the new members keep rolling in as we head into late August, and we hope to keep it going because I think this is something that we're going to see coming up again next year. So again, I'll pause there if anybody has any questions. If not, just note that we had a chapter meeting. Usually we do the annual meeting at the conference, but because we knew that the vast majority of you would not be available to join us, we just had a meeting. You can see the picture in the bottom right here. About 12 of us got together. We had a short presentation from David about the ACT strategic plan. And then we wrapped up that day, Monday of the conference, with the social hour, which was a lot of fun. And I won't say anything more about that. What's the next slide, Kevin?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Thank you.
All right, great.
Yeah, so speaking of collaboration, our very own Chris Bongiorno, he actually stepped in to collaborate with Sylvia Crum of the SEACT chapter to host the ACT National Awards ceremony. So many don't know this. I know Elizabeth does. Chris and Sylvia both, they stepped in pretty last minute to fill the roles of co-MCs of the event, or the program, I should say, primarily because of some last minute travel issues with the awards committee. So major kudos to the 2 of them. They did a fantastic job. It was a great program in itself. And more than anything, it was just an opportunity to continue recognizing individuals and organizations who are driving TDM forward every day. So very fun award ceremony. The second half, or I should say the latter part of the ceremony, is when the Midwest crew really stepped in. This was our big announcement for next year's location, which is Chicago 2022. So one fun thing that Chris and I did, you can see the picture there, we took the baton, and I still got the baton here. It's the Magic Mickey bubble baton. I was able to squeeze this thing into a carry-on and bring it home to my daughters. But we literally took the baton for next year's conference to announce it for Chicago 2022. So what did that mean? Well, we rallied the 12, 13 of us in the morning. We actually started getting them thinking about Chicago by laying out individual packets of Garrett's popcorn across all the tables. I have to admit, I still have a handful of bags here now that my family and I are still munching on. So we laid out popcorn for everyone. And then from there, we actually hosted a very fun interactive trivia game. So we used a platform called CrowdPer. The Midwest crew was spread amongst the crowd. We've got 200 plus participants using their phone to answer the trivia. And it came down to correct responses as well as timeliness of the responses. Many of you, Pete, Lourdes, you all helped us come up with some of the cool questions on CTA and transit. We had some awesome questions about Chicago music scene, sports, of course, with Michael Jordan and Wrigleyville. And then at the end of the day, we ended up giving away 3 Giordano's Pizza gift certificates in hopes of having some of those attendees join us next year in Chicago. So all in all, it was a ton of fun and a great opportunity for us to build the excitement for next year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He was one of our scholarship winners. We have a few on the line. We'll keep it brief, but I want you all to hear from Michelle and Zia just on their experience attending the conference.
Thanks again, Kevin. Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to get one of the 3 scholarships that were awarded to our members to attend the conference, which was a big help. And I think I've already talked enough about my experience. It was great again, and I would love to hear from, let's go with Zia first, if you're able to come off of mute and tell us a few of your takeaways from the conference.
Yeah, it was really a great opportunity to be able to receive the scholarship this year. This was the second ACT event that I have participated in since joining in late 2019. So I went to the TDM Forum in Seattle that year. And I just think that ACT's events are always extremely useful. Their topics are always really timely. We're looking at doing a TDM ordinance here in Madison, and so interested in thinking about how that will be implemented and things like that. And so there was a TMA session that was really, really helpful to hear all the different ways that TMAs can be formed and run and funded, and thinking about whether that's something that makes sense in our area. And being able to meet with all of you guys in person, that's always really great. So I would just say it was an awesome event, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who has the opportunity to go.
Thanks, Zia. And Zia is in Madison, right? Madison, Wisconsin. Great. All right. And our other scholarship recipient was Michelle Leonard from, correct me if I'm wrong, Minneapolis.
Kind of wrong. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me okay?
Correct me then. Thank you, Michelle. And you're up.
Yeah, sorry. We had a commuter fair at a college today, and masks are mandatory. So I hope you can all hear me all right. I was going to prep for this, and I just think about everything that we did there, and I came away with it with so many great experiences that I just don't even know where to start. I enjoyed the sessions that I attended. I really like the council, and I think I might have noted this in my my article too, but I like the give and take of some of those council meetings where there was that availability to sit and kind of share ideas with other people. The people were fantastic. I really felt welcomed by the Midwest chapter and by all of ACT. I met Elizabeth in the hallway before the thing even started, and she remembered me from the get-go, so that was pretty awesome. And I'm looking really forward to becoming more involved and learning more. It was a really great experience. I've gone to a number of conventions in my lifetime, and this was I came away with it feeling like this was probably the most engaging group that I've been with. So I thank you for the scholarship, and I really had a good time.
Thanks, Michelle. And is it Edina or Edina?
It's Edina.
Edina.
Yeah, we're a suburb of Minneapolis,
okay.
or of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. By the way, Kelly, Universal Pass, big hit at Normandale. Big
TDM
yes.
at work right there.
Well, yeah, it was great to meet both of you at the conference. And I think Elizabeth does a great job selling volunteership at the conference. And I definitely got my fill of volunteering, but it's a great way to meet people. And then you see them throughout the week that you're there, or the 3 days that you're there. And you're already familiar to them and vice versa. And then, as Michelle alluded to, the opportunity to sit in on council meetings and the different kind of subtopic groups. And we have all these webinars and teleconference meetings throughout the year, but this is an opportunity to get face-to-face with some of those folks and then figure out where you fit in and how you can get more from those groups or provide more in some cases. So with that, I'll turn it back to Kevin for what's up next.
All right, we're going to close out all conference talk. So what is up next? I saw this in the chat box, but up next, it's our time to shine, team. So I've probably bitten off more than I can chew, but I've assured the entire organization that the Midwest crew we're going to really bring it next year, not just in hosting the best conference ever, but in seeing SEACT win the Chapter of the Year award, and knowing that we got our name the Mid-Best chapter when we won the award in 2018. Chris, Kelly, Noah, and all of us, I mean, we've got to be committed to building out a work plan in addition to hosting a conference that will help us attain that award for next year. So more to come. Noah's going to talk a little bit more about opportunities to get engaged. But with that, I'm actually going to switch gears and turn it over to Kelly to do a quick year in review, as well as where we stand on budget.
Sure, thanks, Kevin. So just wanted to let everybody know kind of where our chapter is at and things that we've accomplished. If you're not aware, we do we create and submit a work plan at the beginning of every year, so that ACT knows what we're doing, and we sort of set ourselves up for what we want to get done in a year. We currently have over 100 members. As I stated in our competition with Cascade, stuck at Cascade in the end. It was a match, but we tied. But I think next year we can really bump up our membership. Just to remind folks that we do have 12 states and Canada, like the entirety of Canada in our chapter. So we're doing pretty well. And we are fortunate to have 4 folks who have gone through the TDM certification process. So, and again, hopefully more of you will do that in the coming year. We've held several meetings, thanks to all of you who have attended. And then we do try and put out quarterly newsletters. The most recent one came out earlier this month. And finally, we helped host a webinar called Safe Rides to School during the pandemic. That was a couple folks from different TMOs and I think maybe a Safe Routes to School representative, just talking about how parents can get their kids to school while we're still trying to protect our children from the pandemic. You want to go to the next one? If you don't know, I'm the treasurer, so I do keep track of our budget. When we started this year, we started with $6,590.81 in our chapter account. Typically, we get a portion of the dues that are submitted to ACT National. Last year, because of the very challenging budget situation and in recognition of how valuable a lot of the staff are to our function as a chapter, it was determined that we would not get a chapter share this year, but that money would go into completely supporting the national organization, which I think was a very prudent decision. We've spent not quite, or a little over $2,000 this year. A big portion of that was scholarships to the international conference, which we are always happy to do. I had to buy checks, which in 2021, I didn't know that was still a thing I had to do, but in order to reimburse folks for expenses at the conference, did order checks, so that was more of a business expense. And then we obviously had a gathering at the international conference. For those of you that were there, I understand there was a lot of networking and also, I believe, maple old fashions. And finally, for the year, we still have money left in our budget that we've set aside for event sponsorships, about $1,000. So if in your area you're hosting some kind of, whether it's like a webinar or a talk, and you want to hire an expert or have, I don't know, things on hand, we've got money for that. Please reach out to us. We will gladly sponsor things. Then we also have $1,300 set aside for member meetings. And we've had that money set aside for a while. Again, if you want to sponsor some sort of happy hour or coffee or networking event in your area, we are really spread out chapter. So in any way that we can help you connect with folks in your area about TDM, we are happy to do that. So that's our budget so far.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. And with that, I'm going to switch it over to Chris and get you all an update on our year-to-date work plan, as well as where we can get involved.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kelly. And much like the budget every year, the executive committee from the chapter works on a work plan to go with that budget. And it's something that when Noah speaks in a couple of slides, he's going to identify some opportunities for you to get involved with that. So our primary goals for this year, 2021, were membership growth and providing opportunities to connect on shared challenges that we're all experiencing. On the growth side, I had my count at 103 members, but whether it's 102 or 103, we started the year at 93. And so that's growth of 10 or 11%. So we're doing well there. And I think that will just consistently be a goal of our work plan. Opportunities to connect. I think that's something that we've done in this engagement category here through our regularly scheduled quarterly meetings, our 4 quarterly newsletters. We've published 3 of them so far, and we'll have 1 more before the year is out. We're here to support member socials, networking events, and webinars. You come up with the ideas and we have some money to support them, or we can work with ACT staff to set up platforms to host those things through the ACT network. So as Kelly mentioned, we have some funds available to do that, and we hope that some of you will take advantage of that before the year is out. We conducted a Midwest member survey early in the year. I think it was in February, and the response was about 40. So about 40% of our members did respond. And I recall one of the things that we heard from people was they wanted more opportunities to connect on a smaller geographic level. Because as Kevin mentioned, we have 12 states plus Ontario and maybe even a broader cross section of Canada. Well, maybe there's some opportunities that you can help us come up with to target some engagement efforts in a smaller geography or within smaller focus areas of TDM within your network. And then we also set out to increase Connect activity on our Connect media platform. And I know I'm a high volume poster, and I hope some of you will join me on there and engage in some of the conversation we have. I recall one of the most active conversations we've had on Connect is about planning for the Chicago conference. So hopefully that will continue to be a theme going forward. As Kelly mentioned, we've also supported through our work plan, we've supported and the budget, member attendance at ACT events. So the Emerging Mobility Summit this year, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, no cost to attend. It was a virtual event. I think it went really well. There might have been a small cost, I think. So we didn't have scholarships for that. The international conference, obviously we did. We awarded 1,500 in scholarships to 3 people. The TDM forum in the fall will have conference scholarships available for that as well. It's a bit of a smaller cost and a smaller time commitment. And then Impact Leadership, where applications are due September 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a cost to that too. And our chapter can help with scholarships for that as well. So this is all part of our work plan. And we'll be talking with you a little bit more about how you can get involved in crafting the work plan for 2022. I think that's it for me. And I'm going to turn it over to Noah to talk about some leadership opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Being on the chapter leadership for the first year that I've joined, I could say based off experience, it's one of the best decisions I've made to kind of catch up and enjoy the TDM world and everything that it has to offer. Being able to work with Elizabeth and our chapter leadership has been outstanding. So fall is coming up, and there's going to be a lot of leadership opportunities that not only within our chapter, but nationally are going to be coming up. Personally, I hope we have some competition for some of these spots, and definitely some chapter members to represent us at the national level. So I'll start from the top here with some of our chapter opportunities coming up, which our vice president and our treasurer role. These are 2-year commitments, and historically we've opened up nominations for these positions starting in the beginning of November, and we give a few weeks for nominations and then look at elections in December. So from a timing standpoint, that's what we'd be looking for. From my experience as well, again, the time commitment definitely has the return on investment. The team and I meet maybe once to twice a month outside of the meetings that we have with everyone. So it's definitely manageable. And I would definitely recommend from a chapter standpoint that it's a good foot in the door to get started and continue to build networking throughout the chapter and ACT in general. You'll see that there's some additional chair positions that and you guys could correct me, I don't believe we've had for our chapter. So these are new and upcoming opportunities to continue to improve our membership and our networking and obviously live up to the MidBest name that we earned in 2018. So the membership chair and marketing and communications chair helps us continue to expand our footprint, and now we're international. Thanks to the Canada folks that we've added and will continue to add. And then marketing and communications would be a big piece on how we have our information and our chapter events marketed, as well as how Chris has been leading the charge with Connect and integrating our information and being able to cross-pollinate between other chapters and really continue to grow. So those will also have the same timing for us from a chapter standpoint. You'll see those first week in November and a few weeks for nominations. The newsletter will also have some information on both of those, all 4 of those options as well. Moving to the International Conference Planning Committee, which we know that'll be in Chicago. Oh, hang on. Got to do the famous wave to turn the light back on. We're going to start that in September. So that's coming up just as soon as next week to be able to raise your hand. And I know obviously having, Midwest Chicago in our territory, we're really hoping we have some strong presence there, as well as a lot of folks sending some nominations in, so we could definitely lead the charge there. With the councils, I was talking with Elizabeth a little bit earlier. Those, I believe, are 2-year terms as well, and they did elections last year. So there's going to be opportunity, but it'll be next fall. But I'll get to it in a minute. There will be an opportunity, and it looks like Kelly already posted it. It'll list all the different committees that are available. So even knowing that you're interested, we could get the ball rolling on some communication there. The University Council in particular, Elizabeth said, is looking for some leaders. So if we have some university members that are interested in joining that council, to reach out to Elizabeth directly, definitely looking for some folks to add there. And most importantly, our DE&I committee, from an ACT national standpoint, that is an application period also in the fall. We don't have a specific date for it yet. But they are always in the fall. So the selected members will be nominated and elected and start in January. So a lot of opportunities, both on our end within a chapter as a group and some new ones, so some trailblazers for membership and marketing and communications chair, and then a few different opportunities and even a council opportunity for the university piece. So tons of opportunities. And again, I can't say enough about how much I've learned and how it's helped come on board and get up to speed. So if you are interested, like Kelly had said, no commitment, but please reach out. The survey that you see in the chat is an opportunity for you to just answer a few quick questions if you are interested, and then the best method to contact you.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. And just to cap off this first portion of the meeting before we turn it over to our guest speaker, thanks in advance to all of you, Juan, for your future involvement. We need you. And more importantly, help us bring value to you as well as the rest of our members in the Midwest. So lots of opportunities out there. No pressure, but we definitely want you to fill out the form. Let us know your areas of interest, and let's start getting you some information on what it means to get involved. All right. So with that, let me switch gears a little bit. I am very honored to introduce Lisa K. Schweier. Lisa K. is a program manager for Carnegie Mellon University's Traffic 21 Institute, which houses the Mobility 21 National University Transportation Center. She started her TDM career in 2003, helping commuters through the Commute Info program. In 2019, speaking of awards, Lisa K. received the ACT President's Award for Extraordinary Service. Lisa, thanks for being on with us. We're honored to have you to talk about this very important topic. I will turn over the virtual floor to you and help you through the PowerPoint slides.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And I wanted to thank you and Chris and your leadership team for asking me to speak and to kind of get this discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion started, so we can share a little bit more about what's been happening over the past years. And I just wanted to say, I was hearing everybody talk about the conference, and I wasn't able to go this year, but I remember, I guess it was almost 18 years ago, my first conference, and I felt like I finally found my people. You know, people were saying words like carpool and SOV, and, you know, nobody else knew what those things were. So it was kind of cool to get someplace that they actually talked in that way. So if we go to the next slide. So about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, David Strauss had sent out an email to the ACT membership and explained that there had been interest in trying to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion within the organization. And with what was happening outside of the organization, the timing seemed to be right. And so on June 3rd, an email went out and people were asked to volunteer. Next slide. And when they got the responses, everybody was pretty overwhelmed. We had 63 people who responded and said, we will help with this. There's probably people on this call that were involved, and I can't see everybody's name, so I apologize if I don't mention you by name. But the 63 members included someone from every chapter. It included 6 board members from the national board and people who are really interested and passionate about wanting to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how that impacts ACT, as well as how it impacts the work that we do within our communities. So June 3rd, and then when we go to the next slide, June 30th was our first meeting. So less than a month was the first meeting of this task force. And we started using the feedback form that many of you have seen since then and started generating ideas. And it was incredible how many ideas and thoughts and concepts came out through the individuals who were in the room. And we quickly found out that we needed to split into smaller groups to help us to tackle some of this coordination. And we also knew as a task force, our job was to have a recommendation within a couple months to the board to be able to take action. So on the next slide, we broke into 3 groups. There was a defining of DE&I and a committee for ACT, defining DE&I in general and how ACT can be more inclusive, and then trying to do some sort of benchmarking through a survey. Next slide. So what we found through the discussions and the hours and hours of work that people put in was that there was a clear beginning of a roadmap to be able to say, these are the kinds of things that we would like to see. And we started to group them into short-term, medium-term, and long-term, knowing that the task force wasn't going to actually implement these. They were set up as suggestions to be able to be passed on to the next group. Next slide. We also did a DE&I survey. We were pretty excited. There was about 20% survey response rate, which if you do surveys, that's pretty good. And on the next page, what we did hear back from the ACT members was that people overwhelmingly were positive that this was being addressed, that there was some work going on around it, that people agreed that there should be some sort of formal DE&I committee to be able to continue this work. And on the next slide, by November, the task force wrapped up their work. And I love these kind of things where you get together, you do your work, you have an outcome and you go. And so in November, we presented to the ACT Board of Directors and presented a draft charter for the DE&I committee and a DE&I statement to be adopted for the organization. The statement is on the page here. It's also on ACT's website. If you have not seen it, it did go up right after this meeting. And both of these were approved unanimously among the board. So on the next slide, the work started right after that November meeting in recruiting people to be able to serve on the committee itself. There was a special election done because it was kind of off cycle. And Kiki Doman from Chariots, who many of you probably know, took on the role of chair for the committee. And you will see on the screen, there's quite a few of us. It's the biggest committee that ACT has, and it was very intentional to do that because we believed that there needed to be a lot of representation when you start to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we have a lot of members, but we also have opportunities for people that aren't able to necessarily be a member, but who would be willing to volunteer to help with some of the activities that are happening with the committee. So there are ways to get involved. Next slide. So at the conference that this just a couple weeks ago, we even had some sessions that were able to be hosted. And we also had a banner that was there that had a web link and a QR code for people to provide suggestions. I also dropped it just right now in the chat box. We really are looking for, the committee is really just kind of getting started and formulating our work plan. And it would be very helpful if you have questions, ideas, comments, you want to volunteer, to fill out that quick form. It's very short, and let us know that you're interested, and we would be happy to follow up with you. And I hear that, or I saw a note that Kiki has joined us. Kiki, would you like to say anything?
Hello, thanks for having us. Just like Lisa Kay said, I'm actually tag teaming two different meetings right now, but I wanted to be able to listen in as much as I could. So just again, thank you so much for being here. And Lisa Kay, thank you so much for representing our committee. And I'm excited again to start this conversation. So appreciate you all. And I'm looking forward to collaborating further as well.
So then if we go to the next slide, it's just kind of a placeholder for questions and discussion. So I'm hoping that people might have some questions, and Kiki being here is great. We've kind of been sharing the outreach to the chapters and the other councils. So thank you for the time. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what I just presented?
Lisa Kay, I'll kick it off. I know it's great that you had participation on the task force from every chapter, and I was trying to identify who from our chapter was on there. And it looks like we do have someone from the city of Toronto who would be in our chapter on the current committee, which is great. So I think Kevin and I were trying to figure it out at the conference. If we need to try to find someone from our chapter to join, and I don't know if they're on. It's Kim Stemshorn. And does not look like Kim's on the call, but are there opportunities to join the committee for anyone who wants to this fall? Is that what I understand?
So I'm going to defer to Elizabeth because last year, everybody was put on for a 2-year cycle. But I understand that there might be some vacancies coming up. So can you explain that, Elizabeth?
Sure. I think it probably, so first of all, for all of our committees, there is an open period where you can submit a statement of interest for which committee you would like to be on. They are listed on the website under the About Us section. There's like a board tab, and then there's a tab that's all the committees. So that always opens up every fall. And there are always positions because people have to cycle off for a variety of reasons. So if it's something that you're interested in, definitely look for that announcement as to when that time period will be open. We'll probably have a better sense when that happens, how many positions there might be on the DEI committee. So stay tuned. I think there's also opportunities to be kind of like an informal member as well. So you could, volunteer to be on one of the subgroups potentially. You wouldn't be a, voting member, as we would say, but you can certainly, chime in and stuff like that. So.
Thanks, Elizabeth. There was also a question in the chat about the availability of the sessions from the conference. Are those being made public as well?
I don't know if they will be public. They should be available to people who were at the conference, but I'm not going to promise that.
If I can chime in, I know the DE&I session panel, they are planning to post their presentations fairly soon. So, and I believe those will be posted on the Connect platform.
Perfect.
I'll ask a quick question. Lisa K and Kiki, I know that the Friday webinars are coming back. Any plans on incorporating an upcoming webinar on DEI, separate from obviously the 2 wonderful sessions that was at the conference?
So Kiki, do you want to address that? The short answer is yes, but.
Apologize. Can you repeat that, Kevin?
Yeah. With the webinars coming back, the weekly webinars, are there plans for one sponsored by the DEI committee that would maybe cover a different DEI talk track than what we saw at the conference?
Great question. So there is discussion right now about having a DE&I sponsored webinar. I believe proposals are being met and we're filling out the forms and we're trying to coordinate with the schedule with Elizabeth, and then once Casey's back as well. So yes, there is something in the works right now, and we're shooting for late October, but we're still trying to iron out the details.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions for Kiki and Lisa K while they're on the line? If not, here's where I'm going to turn my question to you all, our ACT Midwest members, right? So you can take this a number of directions. We're not going to pick anyone. So if you can volunteer, we'd love that. But one, based on what you do now, your organizations, are there things you're doing today to incorporate DEI and its talk tracks into your overall TDM practice? And a second part of that question, if you want to go this direction, is as you think about volunteering and getting more involved with us on a Midwest chapter leadership level, what are some basic thoughts and ideas on how we can incorporate DEI into our work plan for next year? Who wants to go first? Anyone?
I'll ask a follow-up question of the DEI committee representatives. I admittedly haven't looked a lot at your work plan or any of the goals you set, but is there anything about recruiting board representation or membership? I mean, I think that's something that we would aspire to, I would aspire to as as a chapter leader is bringing more diversity into our leadership and in our recruiting efforts, knowing that, we are an industry organization and our industry has its own shortcomings when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But as a group, if we can be looking at ways to improve the membership of our chapter at the same time as the organization at whole is, I think that would be a good way for our chapter to look at what is the ACT national model. Are there any best practices in the works in other chapters that we can maybe learn from and incorporate into our work plan next year?
I'm so excited that you asked that question because one of the things that, like I said, this effort's only about a year old. And so there's a lot of things that are still being thought through and prioritized for what needs to come first. But one of the things that was able to be changed almost right away was some data collection of people who are applying for leadership positions. You're now being asked if you do represent a community that would fall within the DE&I definition. And so at this point, it's just kind of a information gathering. It's not a pre-qualifier or anything else. But that was something that was able to be done last year, which is kind of fast. But there are discussions about how do we do all of those things? How do we look at that from suppliers for the organization to the leadership of the organization to even how we serve our communities and how does what we do impact the diversity within our communities as well. And so I think there's a lot to still have those conversations about, and we're just kind of at the beginning of it. Did you want to add anything to that, Kiki?
I think you summarized everything beautifully. But yeah, just to kind of reiterate, we have such an engaged group of committee members, and so we're just trying to engage other groups. Just that's why we appreciate the invitation to be here today with you all. So yeah, we don't know what we don't know, so we're just loving the opportunities to collaborate and learn. And trying to just dig for more information on how we can build a framework for chapters and members as a whole to use as a resource, and how we can incorporate more DE&I into our everyday work. So yeah, we're excited to go on this journey with you all.
I'm Iris Steinberg from Southeast Michigan, and I was part of the DE&I committee. It was really great experience. And also I really enjoyed the DE&I focused presentations at the conference. And I think somebody asked, I'm not sure, like how we, would be utilizing that in our work. And so I'm just looking at my notes. I don't remember which one it was called. There was a really great speaker from Oregon, talked a lot about outreach to disadvantaged communities and, communities and audiences that I think, I know we have a really hard time reaching, and it became much more difficult during the pandemic, especially if folks are not, don't have access to the internet. So I really appreciated all of that detail. And I actually just presented that the other day to some folks that I'm working with on a big highway construction project here. And, part of the conversation is how do we reach folks that will be impacted by that. So I appreciated that. And I was the one that asked, I've been looking for some of those presentations from ACT because I do want to be able to share that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to when that's available. There's a lot of great information. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thanks for being part of the task force as well. I think what you're hearing is we're doing the, trying to catch up as fast as we can to being able to put some of these things into place. And definitely, if you have an interest and you would like to join the effort, we'd love you to. There's always ways to be able to bring ideas or questions and to have them get on the list to be able to be looked at and to be able to put some more things in place for ACT to benefit members as well as the communities we serve. I dropped my personal email in the chat as well. If you have things that you would like to talk about offline, please feel free to contact me that way too. So thanks again, Kevin and Chris and the leadership team. This has been a great opportunity. And I have to say, it's really impressive what you've been talking about with your chapter. So congratulations on having such a strong chapter.
And in return, on behalf of the ACT Midwest members, the board, thank you, Lisa Kay. Thank you, Kiki, for joining us today. We look forward to collaborating with you. I know this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as well as for the rest of us, right? And it's early in the conversation, but we do have to find ways to collaborate to build this into our overall work plan. So thank you in advance for being a resource for us as we head into next year. With that Midwest chapter, I think that's a good way to conclude our annual meeting. Thanks again for participating. Thanks for joining us today. Please fill out the survey that Kelly included in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We want to know which areas you look forward to volunteering in, even if it's just a minimal interest at this point. And then as we look towards closing out the rest of this year on a high note, be on the lookout. We'll start working on Chicago very soon here. In fact, in a month. And then we're going to be working closely on getting some really qualified candidates in place for our 2 openings for vice president as well as treasurer. So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.